A little bit.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a little static. It's not overbearing. I mean, not on my end.
And so, you know, when we see candidates that use freedmen and use reparations, we want to know what they stand on. And, you know, especially those who are not freedmen, right? We just got to be honest and say it. We want to make sure that the people that are saying that they are for reparations for the freedmen, they really mean that, and they can stand on that based on, you know, our questions and the responses that they give. And we believe that every candidate should go through a proper and thorough vetting. I'm gonna turn it over to my brother Ali in 1 second, but let me shout out some of the fam that's in the building. Baby Jane 777 says shalom. Descendant of Job Freedman, peace to the family. You already know. 42 Tribes said nice beat. You know, we try to do everything dope. No, not try. We do everything dope over here at BTP, Be the Power. Peace, Vayasa Nicola Gullah. Brother Dre was good, fam. Marcus Champion in the building. Shout out to the California family, man. Y'all doing great work over there. We got to shout our Cali family out. Gary Johnson said peace and blessings to everyone. BTP Riri is in the building. Sister Faye XX is in the building. Let me see. Chris Emanicki, newest member of the Be the Power channel, is in the building. Let me see. Otis said vet them all, sloganeering or a soldier in the war, hashtag justice claim. And that's what we got to do. We got to vet everybody. So I'm going to turn it over to Brother Ali, and we're going to get this interview started. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Ali.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I just wanted to greet the family, BTP family, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen family in the building tonight. We definitely have a special guest in the building with us who is backstage running for the 3rd Congressional District in Pennsylvania, and her name is none other than Alexandra Hunt. Can we bring the candidate forward? Greetings, Miss Hunt. How's everything going?
Hello. Hi. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So, um, basically, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're running and everything.
Sure. My name is Alexandra Hunt. I'm running for Congress in PA3, which is most of Philadelphia. And to start, both my parents are teachers. My twin brother is on the autism spectrum. And so I grew up with being very centralized around education. And that is a very big part of our platform is building a school to opportunity pipeline for younger people to ensure that we have a healthy democracy and a thriving community of filled with people. This is something that's very concerning to Philadelphians. I am a survivor of violence, sexual violence, domestic violence. I worked as a stripper during college, and I've had an abortion as well. So I'm familiar with some of the common issues that are prevalent amongst young people. And my background's in public health, which is really the specialty that specializes in partnering with community. And that's what has brought me here today. I I'm white and I'm running in a district that is majority black American, and I'm running against a black man who is part of the Congressional Black Caucus. And
Interesting.
mhm. So yes, I'm going to be upfront about that. And I had
Well,
people,
I'm sorry. What's the name of your opponent?
Dwight
What is his name?
Evans.
Dwight Evans.
Mhm. And I had members of the community come to me and say, you're running for this majority black district, and you if you're going to represent us, you have to represent our best interests, which is an Office of Freedmen Affairs and reparations. And being a survivor of violence, I know what restorative justice looks like, and it looks like accountability, and it also looks like intention and specificity. And so I think that the Office of Freedmen Affairs addresses that as well. That descendants of American uh, former slaves are owed reparations and the chance to start to repair from the trauma that has been passed down from generations. And that cannot happen if we continue to lump people in as people of color and not specifically and intentionally address the harm that has been caused to the communities such as Black Americans.
Absolutely. So, in your estimation, the Office of Freedmen Affairs would be it would function to the disaggregate blackness for the purpose of being able to determine who the proper beneficiaries of reparations should be.
Yes, it would be under the scope of the Office of Freedmen Affairs.
So let me ask you this: how long have you actually been interested in reparations, and because I know there are a lot of people who are concerned about that, and is, the issue is whether or not, I'm just kind of going to jump into it, whether or not this is just a tactic to try to drum up votes for your campaign. So explain to the people how long you've actually been involved or advocating for or interested in reparations.
So I come into this space with my background in fighting for prison reform, and I'm a prison abolitionist, and that has been where a lot of my energy and effort has been in bringing people home, because it's very much targeted Black Americans, our current prison system. And through that, I have advocated for compassionate reentry, which includes economic justice. And so from that angle, I have been an advocate for reparations, with the understanding that we cannot achieve economic justice without that intention towards a community that has been neglected, divested from, traumatized, and to have that, again, that specificity of an Office of Freedmen Affairs.
Indeed, indeed. So I have a question. How did you come across the term American freedman, and what made you want to use that as opposed to just saying Black or African American, etc.?
It was taught to me by a reparationist who is on our team. I I really heard that there has been a whitewashing of people of color, and that it lumps together a group of people who are not similar and have not had similar experiences in this country. And so the term freedmen was taught to me by a reparationist.
Excellent. Brother Grimm, do you have anything you want to add in?
Yeah, basically, I just want to get a little bit more clarity. I understand you were, educated on what we call the Friedman philosophy by reparationists on your team. I just have a question. Have you researched why, or understand, or did they explain to you why we use the term American freedmen?
I believe it is, and you can correct me and educate me here, but I believe it is the specificity of who this would be targeting. That it's the descendants from American slaves, and which are known as American freedmen, and it's from that point in history, and that previous uh, Office of Freedmen Affairs.
Yeah, yes. And to basically to give you an understanding as well, as you move forward in your campaign as far as us pushing reparations, I would ask you to basically study the reconstruction period, because really, what we call the Freedman philosophy here. I don't know the name of the individual that basically uh informed you and on your advisory team that's a reparationist, but Nyhiem, Ali, myself and Josh and Logic, we basically resurrected the use of the term American freedmen, and we're the first people to use it, apply it to our people within the past 150 years. So, but it would basically be in your best interest to, to study that, the uh, uh, the Reconstruction period. And the reason why I say that, Miss Hunt, is because our claims are not just basically rooted on, oh, okay, well, you was a slave, okay, you should pay me for being a slave. The Friedman philosophy, or what we call the Friedman philosophy, is basically rooted really in a series of harms that were done to American citizens. And without going into a whole lot of detail about it, is basically that and after the Civil War, efforts were made by the what they call the radical Republicans in making us whole. But those efforts were into the Freedmen's Bureau, the legislation that was put out for freedmen, all that stuff were overthrown, and we were basically placed back under those monikers of just black or Negro or what have you. So it was a lot of harm that came out that Reconstruction period that was not just morally wrong, but legally and civically wrong. And that's basically part of the basis of a great reparations argument. So, if you get there or when you get there, it would be, great to support that argument based on the historical information.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that we have to know where we've been in order to change course of where we're going. And my father's a history teacher, and I really believe in knowing the history as well.
Absolutely. Let me just to add on, another reason we use the term American freedmen specifically, and not just freedmen, is because there are also Indian freedmen in this country, right? Those people who were emancipated from slavery by the five civilized tribes, and so those people are um, referred to as the Indian freedmen, or more specifically, Chickasaw freedmen, Choctaw freedmen, Creek freedmen, Seminole freedmen, etc.
Okay.
Right, and so for us, the distinction being made between the Indian freedmen, who are our family members,
Mhm.
we are calling ourselves, for the specificity purposes, American freedmen, just to make the distinction between us and our Indian freedmen family, just so that you have that particular understanding as you move forward as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
hmm So, brother Josh, anything you want to add, or any questions to ask?
Hey, Alexandra.
Hey, Josh.
So I wanted to ask you, and I hope everybody's cool with if I go like something that's a little bit more um specific and direct to her district. What are some of the things that you're looking to um work on improving in your district that you see affect the freedmen the most? So, like like when you think about the district that's a majority freedmen district, and you see that okay, I'm gonna have to. It's an uphill. I won't say necessarily it's an uphill battle, but again, you're coming and you have to defeat the incumbent, who I don't know how long. I don't know. I guess you can answer how long has he been in office there, but
He's held public office for 42 years. He was in the state house before he was in the federal house. He moved into the federal house after his predecessor was indicted on public corruption.
I'm sorry, my connection cut out. Um, but I'm not sure if you answered the question. Basically, I was just trying to say, when you look at what's ailing the freedmen in your district, what are some of the top things that you're looking to improve on? Some places that may be lacking, that the current um, congressman is not taking the time to address or overlook. What are some of those things that you're seeing in your district with the freedmen that you're looking to improve on?
So, for starters, the reason that I'm running for office is it the breaking point was the pandemic for me, and it was the enormous lines at food distribution sites that made me say, okay, somebody is not fighting for us, somebody is not doing their job, and something's got to give. It can't be the people of Philadelphia anymore. And so that was how I found my opponent. Um, and just to repeat, he's been in public office for 4 decades, for longer than I've been alive. And so the five major issues that I'm running on are all intertwined and cast a large umbrella that would lift the community that I'm fighting for. And so when we start with environmental justice, we often talk about the Green New Deal. And the Green New Deal has different components. And yes, it would address the climate crisis, but part of the Green New Deal is housing for all. And housing is a major issue in Philadelphia, and people being pushed out due to gentrification and rising prices, tax prices, mortgage prices, rent prices, as well as something that was deeply disturbing and upsetting that happened over the summer is predominantly Black neighborhoods have less tree coverage, and that causes those areas to get hotter. But these neighborhoods also can't afford to necessarily turn on their air conditioning. And so people are dying of heat stroke in their own homes because they can't afford to turn on their air conditioning, but they're in hotter areas of the city. So planting trees and also making sure that utilities are affordable for people. Part of the Green New Deal includes the federal jobs guarantee, so making sure that there is employment for all, and employment that is dignified with a livable wage. Universal healthcare is a major issue. Healthcare is a major issue in the district. 50% of people are on a public option. This is a deeply impoverished district. It is the second most impoverished district in the state. The first being the other part of Philadelphia, which is PA2. And so healthcare is a major issue. We had Hahnemann Hospital, which serves a very vulnerable population, closed because of profit, because it wasn't making enough of a profit. And my opponent supports and takes money from private health insurance companies. So he's not fighting for universal health care. He's invested in the fossil fuel industry. He's not fighting for the Green New Deal. My platform on education reform is called the New Deal for Education. Our Philadelphia public schools are falling apart. And when I say falling apart, I mean quite literally, our buildings are falling apart and falling in on students in the classroom. They're not getting school lunches. It is a very bad situation. So a New Deal for Education would take the investment into public education at the federal level to circumvent this system that we have on local taxes, which really penalizes impoverished neighborhoods and zip codes, which are also minority neighborhoods as well. So that is a major issue to Philadelphia. Education is very important to American freedmen as well as pretty much every person in this country. Criminal justice reform, as I said, focusing on ending the war on drugs and reducing the rate of incarceration is something that's very important to me and something that I've been working towards for a long time now. And then lastly, I know this was probably longer than you wanted, economic justice, which includes a living wage, it includes union power, it includes reparations for American freedmen. And that is how and also a wealth tax. It would close the wealth gap. And what we would see is that if people in this country were actually doing well, we would see our economy soar. So it's to everyone's benefit. This Office of Freedmen Affairs is to everyone's benefit, even though it would specifically start to repair the trauma and harm upon American freedmen.
We have
Yes,
a
Miss. Oh,
go ahead, Graham. I
yeah.
was just going to ask a question from the audience, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Alexandra, what would you include in a robust reparations package for American freedmen?
So my understanding of the Office of Freedmen Affairs, and again, this is coming from you, so correct me where I get things wrong or I miss things. But the Office of Freedmen Affairs includes housing, it includes education, it includes small business, black owned business. It includes monetary reparations, which in a conversation I had with somebody else, they referred to as Freedmen UBI. And it includes agriculture, which is, I know, something that has been really taken away from American freedmen.
Yes. So uh, it's interesting, right? The UBI. Explain to us what that would look like and what kind of numbers. Um, I don't know where you got it from, but what kind of numbers was this person talking about that it's talking about UBI?
So UBI is universal basic income, and it's something that is talked about in progressive circles and pushed by Andrew Yang. If you're familiar with him, former presidential candidate, former New York City mayoral candidate, and we really can't have UBI until we have reparations, and so that was already my understanding of it before somebody called it Freedmen UBI. But there are, and my concern here is I don't want to minimize the trauma by assigning monetary value to it. But there are calculations that can be made of the loss of finances and income and money from specifically that 1870 census to now, and it's trillions of dollars that has been withheld from American freedmen, that in a UBI model it would be monthly payments with the calculation of that trillions of dollars. I don't have the specific amount that's owed to American freedmen. But if you compare where white people are versus American freedmen, there's a very distinct calculation of the wealth that white people have been able to accumulate from that time versus the lack of wealth and the divestment and poverty that American freedmen have seen.
Okay. That I mean, we have to say that's interesting. So reparations, right outside of Freedmen UBI, like what is your? I know you said that the numbers can range into trillions, but I and the listening audience would like to know what is your idea of reparations, right? Because when you come into this space, that's one of the things that and you pick up this reparationist mantle. One of the things that you learn is all of the different nuances. Now, many people have many different ideas about what reparations should be. We tend to lean on what the economists have said should be our baseline as a starting point, and we speak to reparations broadly, not just as direct cash payment. So I'm, just to add more to your answer, or if you could give the people more based on the question that I'm asking, which is just camelbacking off of the last question. How does that look to you? How does reparations look to you? And then I have a follow-up question as well.
It's equity. It's building up a community through how they have been divested from or neglected. So the the branches of the Office of Freedmen Affairs would be housing. It would be land. It would be educational attainment, which leads to dignified, good paying jobs. And then on top of that, the monetary reparations that are owed too. But I mean, there is opportunity that is owed to American freedmen as well, which is what is very vague to. But housing is owed. Housing is a human right, and proper sustainable shelter. Healthcare is a human right, but proper and good quality care is owed. Education, quality education, and that pathway to a dignified job. It doesn't always have to be higher education, as well as monetary reparations. But my understanding is that reparations is that whole umbrella of making sure that a community is being lifted in an equitable manner.
All right. My follow-up question is, what do you say, let's just say you get elected, you unseat the incumbent, and the party tells you stop with the reparations talk because it's going to upset white centrists who are, we're going into the primaries, and we want to make sure that any talk for white centrists who sometimes lean left and sometimes lean right is eliminated and done with. How would you respond to such a request? This is coming down from Pelosi and the top Democratic brass, and usually, you know, based on my research, they usually get what they want from the party. And many times I've seen Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez kiss the ring. And and we're gonna definitely get to some of the comments in the chat. We see y'all, fam. But what would you say to the leadership of the Democratic Party if they asked you that?
I would say you didn't put me here. That I don't know what I owe them. That I am, if I'm elected, it's because the people of Philadelphia believe that I'm going to Congress to fight for them, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to follow through on that. And so if they say, bite your tongue, go be quieter, that they certainly didn't elect me. So I think it's going to be very lonely. It's going to be very hard. But I'm going there to get the resources that we need and to fight for the people of PA3.
Indeed. And we have several people from Philadelphia in the chat. Shout out to Sister Morgan. Anybody have any more follow-up questions? Because I definitely want to get to some of what's being said in the chat. Sister Morgan said, I'm here for wealth, like jobs. And she put a whole bunch of question marks after that. Reparations is a debt that's old. Let me see. Somebody asked, what is Freedmen UBI, Brother Ty Harper? We don't know what that is. Like we've never heard of Freedmen UBI. We just have to be honest. So let me see. Ty Harper also says the Green New Deal is more of a progressive climate change policy that has the potential to exclude freedmen, just like the New Deal did on the local level. So that's an interesting comment that I want to put up on the screen. Like we have legitimate concerns, right? And when we get, it's bad enough when you have freedmen, and we seen some of what they said about Dwight Evans in the chat. Somebody basically said that he was bad news, right? So when you have freedmen not doing what they're supposed to do, and then we have others like yourself, right? It's a white woman that's running on this specific type of platform. There are many questions that are going to arise. And at the bare minimum, we want to make sure that if you're going to represent the freedmen in any capacity, insofar as being a reparation is concerned, we want to make sure that you have the right information. Now, I've got a chance to look at some of Dwight Evans's platform and some of the things that he fights for and pushes, and some of interesting questions in the chat. I'll get to that. Some of what I see from your platform and his platform, they line up. And so what I'll do is I'll go to Anthony Dickerson's question, right? Being that there's a lot of overlap. Both of y'all seem to be fighting for the same exact thing, although I didn't look at the whole thing, reparative justice in his program. So Dwight Evans asks, how do you get black churches to turn on Dwight Evans?
That's a really good.
Excuse me, Anthony Dickerson. My bad.
And I know that this is very important to Anthony. I think getting black churches to turn on Dwight Evans is going to be very tough. It's something that our team has been trying to get our foot in the door to try to speak to congregations and appeal to them, but they are deeply entrenched with my opponent, and so it's tough. And it's also tough with somebody with my background to really connect with the religious community in general. That's not for the lack of trying. And I just want to circle back to the comment that you made about representing freedmen. I'm just very specific with terminology, and I'm not running to represent. To me, representing is a passive term, and I don't think that that's good enough from our elected officials. I'm running to fight for PA3, to fight for American freedmen, to fight for this platform. I'm not running to sit in a seat and represent it in the interest of it. I'm running to fight for it.
Indeed.
Sister Morgan has a very interesting take. She said it's not happening. It's just the reality. Like getting the black churches to turn on him is it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And you know, and these are some of the comments that are coming in the chat, because we deal in reality, right? And we're not going to sugarcoat anything. Sister Morgan is out in Philadelphia. She's a very boots on the ground type of person. So, you know, what she says, especially to us, when it comes to freedmen in that particular city of Philadelphia, holds
That's right.
weight and sway.
I have another question. Um, what local organizations are backing you, and can you explain why they're backing you? That's from the OG Otis. Go ahead.
The OG Otis. So we have an endorsement from Penn Justice Dems. We just got a distinction from Mom's Demand. I myself have done work within uh, prison abolition groups. So I've been working with organizers from those groups. I've been working with, while there has been a lot of concern about losing the Democratic majority in the House, so unions have been endorsing my opponent. There are people who are willing to break away and do work on the side from unions, um, and that's been kind of what we're up against, is that it's been tough to run against an incumbent who's been in public office and a name known for 4 decades.
Sister Morgan asks, what group?
What do you mean?
Yeah, go into it a little bit more, sis.
I can't.
No, not you. I'm asking
Oh,
Sister
more
Morgan.
okay. All right. While she's doing that, let me see.
Well, I did want to ask a question.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, what was what was like the long or the short version of the moment that you realized, hey, I want to run? Was it a particular build up to say, hey, I want to run? Was it something in particular you saw, or was it um just a long time aspiration?
No, I never aspired to be part of politics. I think a lot of the people who have been drawn towards our campaign are reluctantly political, and it's because the system has never favored them. But yet we can't change a system if we don't participate in it, and that's really how I've been involved in that same manner. I don't think that the system favors everyday people, and I think it's very hurtful. But we can't change it if we don't participate in it. And the moment was at a food distribution site, and it was the length of the line. It was incredibly long, of people who were food insecure, and it's wrong. Uh, it that is a policy failure, to have that length of lines of people who are food insecure and who are going hungry, who are having to show up and stand in line on a hot summer day to get food from a truck. It's just a failure. And that was when I said I have to do more to try to change the system.
Are there any more candidates that are running against the incumbent as well, besides yourself?
There is one other candidate, yes.
Okay.
on the ballot.
Okay. Let me see. Brother Khalif said, who's also from Philadelphia, said, me and my team reached out to every person running in that seat. Nobody wanted to adapt the platform. CBC gotta go down. Okay, so I'm assuming
Yeah,
that he's saying that Alexandra did accept the plat to adapt the platform. So I'm guessing that he's saying that she.
talking about reparations, I'm assuming.
It's a
Adopting
bunch of comments
reparations.
coming in.
Yeah. Dean Smith says, I don't know who she is, never heard of her, never saw her. She was a former stripper. He's asking. She already, yeah, she said she was a former stripper. Um, Also, you know what? If y'all don't mind, can I get to something that's on her website? I would just
Oh,
like to
sure,
kind of go
sure.
into this, right? Dealing with immigration reform. I'm going to read this and then maybe you can go into it a little bit more, Alexandra. It says here Alexandra is committed to dismantling systemic barriers to the American dream, which is why she will fight to end xenophobic policies that criminalize immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. She's proud to live in a sanctuary city and is committed to maintaining Philly's diverse environment. Alexandra will work to abolish agencies that militarize the border, including immigration and customs enforcement and Customs and Border Patrol. She will eliminate racist and xenophobic policies that delay citizenship and deny the right to asylum. As a congresswoman, Alexandra will also fight to include domestic workers in basic labor protections, support DACA, and provide a straightforward path to citizenship. She's committed to transformative and just immigration reform. Can you this is I'm just gonna be honest with you. That's gonna be a problem for Freedmen. That's gonna be a problem for Freedmen. But go into a little bit more detail on your immigration position, if you could.
Mhm. And I'm aware of that. And my opponent supports immigration as well. My mother is an immigrant, and I know what it was like for her growing up, seeing her not really feel welcome or embraced in the United States. So that has definitely shaped my views on immigration policy. But that being said, I am running in PA3, which is a majority Black, majority Freedmen district. And the priorities of the district will shape the priorities of my um, holding of elected office.
Okay, brother Naheem, you want to add into that?
Yeah, I'm reading the chat and I'm reading the conversation, and I'm like this. When people are adopting freedmen strategies, right? Like reparations. That's a freedman political strategy because it's our fight. Well, for us, it's our fight. You look at even black reps like Corey Bush and out of St. Louis and Jamal Bowman out of New York. They said that they were going to fight for reparations. I mean, they ran on that. They made sure that it was included in a lot of their talking points. But as soon as they got into office, they bent the knee to Pelosi and what the Democrats wanted. Although these individuals, and I specifically point them out because they are freedmen, they ran on that as a platform. It is our job, especially anyone coming with freedmen and reparations in their platform, to ask questions and ask tough, tough questions. So, and this debates going on in the chat with people with people from Philly. I'm sitting here watching it, right?
Right.
Because this is a touchy issue. And whenever you have white people that come into this type of space, people's antenna are gonna always go up because I've went over your website several times, and I'm looking at some of what you have here, criminal justice reform, economic justice, Medicare for all, education reform, keeping our streets safe and ending gun violence, housing as a human right, digital New Deal, immigration reform, racial justice, women's rights, Black American agenda, which includes reparations, justice for tribal nations. Like, I could look at some of this stuff, right? Justice for tribal nations. I mean, every time the United States of America allocates monies, these tribal nations get a cut. When the CARES Act passed, I think that was the last act, or was it the HEROES Act? One of them, the tribal nations, the Bureau of Freedmen Affairs got $31 billion out of
Bureau
it.
of Indian Affairs,
What did I say?
Freedmen Affairs.
Freedmen.
Oh,
So
gee. Bureau of
as
I
a matter
was
of fact, the latest budget, I think that Biden is proposing for 2023's, I think got earmarked 50 billion. So I guess what we're trying to say is, and I understand being a running for United States Congress and representing that district. Um, you want to encompass as many people as possible, and you want to be able to show that that platform is going to be used to benefit a lot of causes. I guess our concern is what normally happens. We have an emotional attachment to when people start speaking on like they're going to advocate for our causes, and then what happens is when everybody else's when everybody else's agenda items are there, they end up becoming the priority, and ours find their way to the back of the line if addressed at all. So that, to me, like, that is um one of the most frustrating and I don't want to say disheartening, but it's just what we see happen over and over and over with candidate after candidate, and eventually people get to the point where they lose any sense of interest in you know moving forward with any candidate that has that talk. So I mean, I don't know. What do you say to that?
I feel such an obligation to follow through with what I say I'm going to do. That even leading up to election day, that if I lose, I feel like I'm going to be letting people down. And so I know, and I am going to be very frank here. This is going to be hard to get past. It's going to have a lot of resistance, but this is a part of my platform, and I have said that I'm going to fight for it, so I will. And it will be a priority because of the people who if they do decide to elect me, it is one of their priorities. And so I need to honor that. And I think that it's just a matter of integrity, which is one of my core values. And I'm not planning on holding office for a career. I'm planning on getting in and getting the platform that I'm running on passed, and then passing it on to new ideas and new energy to fight for the next big fight. So that this isn't. I'm not running to get comfortable and sit in a seat and to govern over people, which I think is something that we all rightfully are suspicious of when people say that they're a politician or political. I'm running to serve. I am running to lift. I'm running to be a conduit of federal resources into PA3, into Philadelphia, because the people that I care about are on the ground, are not getting enough, and that's not something that I can just stand by and watch and not speak to and not fight for. So for me to feel like I'm doing a good job, I need to see PA3, the people, the everyday people who have been never prioritized or deprioritized, I need to see them start to thrive. And then I will be satisfied.
I bring this chart up, right? My bad, Grim. I want you to go in after this. This is from Statista.com. This is the 2019 hate crime statistics, right? And the newer numbers that just came out for 2021, they came out a few months ago. African Americans, black, our people, freedmen, we still lead in the category of hate crimes against, right? So when you see like anti-black or African American, we see the number. I actually added all of these other numbers of incidences and combined them, and they just beat the amount of anti-black or African American hate crimes by, I think it was 40 incidents, right? So like when I look down and I see anti-American Indian or Alaska Native, and I see on your platform, it says something along the lines of, you know, violence, you're going to be fighting for justice for tribal nations, basically. You know what I'm saying? It says far too frequently
So
the federal. Okay. No, go ahead. I'll let you
I
explain that.
the I've been criticized before for having this on my platform when it's not reflective of the constituency of PA3. I personally have done work with Pine Ridge Reservation, and I could not leave them off of my platform and exclude them from this. This is not a large percentage of PA3, but I do not want to contribute to making them feel forgotten.
Indeed, and like, let me, before you come in, Grim, I want to say this, right? Politics is, we would love for everybody to run for, you know, to be on a Freedmen First platform and only Freedmen, to be honest with you. But politics doesn't work that way. If I was to run, I, I'm gonna be asked, what do you feel about immigrants? And I'm gonna have to give a breakdown on my platform of what I feel about immigration. I'm going to be asked about Native American. I'm going to be asked about all of these different things. My answer is not going to look like a white person's answer, right? I'm heavily invested in Freedmen First uplift. So I can't expect anybody else that's not a Freedman to, and this is just to the audience, I can't expect anybody that's not a Freedman to have the same outlook that I would have or you would have as a candidate, and this is politics. It's the science of who gets what, when, where, why, and how. So, Brother Grimm, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yes, it was regarding like wait, stand by. I got something. Oh, stand by. I'll ask it, but you can go in.
All right, Brother
I
Ali, did
have,
you have
yeah.
anything?
Uh, Dean Smith. I just want to read his comment real quick. So I'm gonna keep it a buck. What makes a former white female stripper get up one day and decide to run in an all-black district? I think she was sent to quote unquote prime the black vote. This is a test.
What do you feel about that statement? That you're being primed? People may feel that you're being primed for the black vote. What do you feel about that?
What is that? I don't fully understand what it means.
He said she was sent to prime the black vote. This is a test. I don't know.
For what?
I, for what, brother Dean? Break it down. Break that
But
down. What,
I think he's basically asked. Let me see. I think she was sent to quote unquote prime the black vote. This is a test. So I'm maybe
maybe
he means that you're
the
being
Demo-
sent to see if you could maybe drum up the black support needed to
for the
maybe unseat,
Democrats.
yeah, for the Democrat, particularly progressive Democrats, to unseat an incumbent already established Democrat who would be more of a corporate Democrat. I believe that's what he means by that. Like, what do you feel about it? Did you even
Oh,
understand what I said?
yeah, you're saying that. I see. No. I think that my candidacy and the race that we've run is going to be pretty hard to replicate. I don't think that it's going to set anyone else up to particularly win if I don't. I decided to run because of the urgency and the lack of resources, and that was really it. The rest of it, it's been very hard. A former stripper. I've come up against a lot of stigma. I've been pushed out of a job that I loved. I was coaching soccer, and it's also what happens to me after this. Just to share that as well, is I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find another job. I don't know where my income's going to come from if I lose. All my boats are burned. But they're burned because I want to get this. I want to get resources into Philadelphia, and I want people to start to do better, because I have been out in the district. Whether or not you've seen me, it's never been. I've never been someone to just run all over and show myself like that. But I have been out and about, and it's my loved ones who are suffering, and it's my loved ones who are dying, and it's just not acceptable. And so I'm not going to stand by and let it happen. And I'm going to do what I can. And if that doesn't end in being elected, then I will find another way to get resources into Philadelphia.
One of the other things that is very important to our community as freedmen is that the bill that's currently being pushed through Congress, HR 40, is a bill that many of us are not happy with, right? For a number
Mhm.
of reasons. Would you be willing, if you were elected, would you be willing to speak against HR 40 when a lot of the support that they've drummed up for it on the Democratic side would probably have a problem with that? Would you be willing to, as a representative of the people of this particular constituency of freedmen, would you be willing to let Congress know that HR 40 is a bill that the American freedmen are not happy with, and it needs to either be rewritten or replaced completely?
Yes, I mean I am, to be very frank, I'm a white woman running against a black man in a majority black district. I know what can be weaponized against me, and I'm willing to just still continue to fight through that. My understanding of why HR 40, and please again correct me if I'm wrong, um, is not supported by the Freedmen, is because it's calling for more data collection and not immediate action. Is that correct?
It is overall a flawed bill. It is a very flawed bill, and once we've analyzed it, we seen that there were players who had a hand in drafting that bill that want reparations to go to everybody, not just who the bill is supposed to be intended for. So, we got Brother Logic on, and I just want to let the audience know. I see everything that's in the chat first and foremost. We wanted to have Alexandra Hunt on. She's running, for what is that, District 3?
District 3.
Yeah.
Really?
In Philadelphia. So it's a majority black district, and
I think it's
she
like
has
50 some percent, right? 50, is it 57% black or something to that nature?
54% black, 56% women, and a pretty even distribution over the ages.
and we wanted to have her come on and explain, number one, why are you running with freedmen or American freedmen and reparations in the platform, and give the family a chance to hear it and hear how the vetting of certain candidates should be, right? So I before my brother Logic comes on, uh do you have a campaign team? Do you have a campaign manager, treasurer, the different offices that comprise of a campaign team?
Yes, yeah. We have a campaign team. We've been pretty successful in fundraising. I mean, it's grassroots. The average contribution is $36, but we've raised $625,000. We have 10,500 donors. We're right on my opponent's tail. We actually outraised him last quarter, and that has allowed us to bring in staff.
Indeed, brother Logic.
Peace. First of all, first and foremost, peace to all the American freedmen that are tuning in tonight. Government is the game and politics is how it's played. And you know how I do when I come in. We just gonna get straight to business. And so one thing I want to remind the public is that, when we do interviews, that's exactly what it is. It's an interview. It's not an immediate tying in to whoever is being interviewed. It's a discussion so that we can see what everything is about. And so thank you for coming on to our platform. A lot of people have been reluctant to do so in certain instances because a lot of people don't want to put themselves out there to the public in the way that Be the Power presents information, because we keep true to, authentic representation. And so one thing I just, again, thank you for coming on. And what I want to ask you first is, like, I'm sure I haven't tuned in. I was late. Forgive my tardiness, but I don't know what questions was asked of you already. But what I would like to know is, so we have seen that, you've used American freedmen, which is very specific language, right? Which, we brought to the forefront people to reawaken that knowledge and that consciousness of their American freedmen connection to America, right? And to that political status. And so what I would like to know is, why is your name is Alexandra Hunt? Why is Alexandra Hunt the representation we need? Why are you who the American freedmen should get behind? That's my first question.
Well, I altered the terminology of representation previously. I think that representation is a passive term, and that's not what I'm seeking to do. I'm seeking to fight for the platform that I'm running on. And I also think that, again, I don't need you behind me, and I don't want you behind me. I want to work with you and engage in a partnership of getting the legislation passed that would change and better the lives of the district that I'm running to fight for.
All right, but so specifically in regards to American freedmen, right? We're a specific group in America whose families, extend. We're the posterity of those emancipated persons from a system of chattel slavery and a system of oppression and domestic violence, who really have, invested the most into America. And so how familiar are you with our specific political plight that's going on currently in regards to reparations, but in general with our history tying us into, overthrown Reconstruction and what we've been fighting for ever since then, really, right? And so with the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen Savings Bank and trust companies, and all of the congressional commitments and the government promises to the freedmen specifically, how familiar are you with that part of American history?
I would say that, so my father is a history teacher, and my knowledge of American history, which is very much critical race theory and Black history as well, is better than the average white person. But I can make no claim to be as familiar with it as you are.
Indeed. There aren't many who are familiar as us with this specific history, so I don't hold that against you. But if you have the willingness to learn, that is a good attribute. And so with your aims and objectives, as far as, like, we have to be specific with the freedmen, right? Because that's the audience and that you're talking to today. And so with the other things that are incorporated into your platform, how familiar are you with how American freedmen in Philadelphia, we are connected with a lot of American freedmen in Philadelphia, and so how do you understand our my concern is that, so I see your platform, I'm looking at your immigration policy, I'm looking at other policies which are, inconsistent. They're not inconsistent, but they are consistent with, some of the run-of-the-mill Democrat Party positions. And so, specifically with immigration, like the history of immigration has, been a history of interruptions for American freedmen progress, combined with, loose labor laws, coupled with mass immigration policy. And so, when we look at your platform in its entirety, how can we feel confident that the American freedmen part of your platform will have priority in the midst of this political environment and climate with the Democrat Party? Like, how committed are you to fighting to make that a priority among your other points in your platform?
So I did mention this earlier. If I am elected, which in a majority Black district, then it will be because of American freedmen, and therefore my priorities will be reflective of the people who elected me priorities, because that is why they elected me. Um, and I think that it's time. My background is in public health, and so I'm very data savvy, and in that regard, it's very clear to see a system that has consistently put American freedmen at the back last. And so through that knowledge, I see it. I've been seeing it, and that's part of what has motivated me to get here and to run this race. Is seeing this system that just continues to disfavor people who should be prioritized and are owed that from the building of this country and from the extreme trauma and harm that white supremacy has put American freedmen through. So, through both the knowledge of the data and the responsibility of responding to who elected me to do this job, um, that's how I will prioritize American freedmen.
Indeed, I wanted to follow up on a question, and it's basically also touching on what Logic said, but this is like a sociological question, in regards to immigration. And I know we looked at some of your immigration policies, but from a sociological perspective, in regards to immigration, how aware you are in regards to some of the negative sentiments and ideas that a lot of the people that you're going to be helping in regards to immigration have towards American freedmen. Because I mean, if you comb social media, you comb some of these articles, you'll see that a lot of these people who come here, number one, I had to go for a second, so I don't know if it was mentioned. There's hundreds and hundreds of programs already out there that pretty much put immigrants in a better position that they put freedmen then, and we've been here since the inception of this country. We have fought in every war, beginning with the American Revolution, to the latest skirmish. So, how would you address those things, and are you aware of those negative ideas that they like? For example, real quick, the term akata that a lot of Nigerians apply towards us, and just those negative things. I want you to address that, and I want you to address the benefits that a lot of immigrants already get over freedmen, and that's why they come here and become wealthier than us.
Hmm. Well, for starters, I worked with an encampment that formed during the pandemic. It was called Camp JTD. It was on our JFK Boulevard, and the majority of the encampment were American freedmen. So housing is something that has favored immigrants over American freedmen. Um, and it it's can you remind me of the first part of your question, because I think I answered the second part.
Well, you touched on it, but basically, how aware of you you are in regards to the negative idea that your immigrant
Oh yeah.
constituents have about freedmen. I mean, every group that
Mhm.
come here form negative opinions about freedmen, and a lot of the immigrant populations wouldn't have the freedom that they have if it wasn't for the sacrifice of American freedmen from Frederick Douglass to Dr. King.
So I am always learning, and I learn by listening to people and their personal stories. That being said, since I have been talking about reparations and an Office of Freedmen Affairs, there has been a lot of criticisms and comments that I refer to as whataboutisms. And so through that regard, I am familiar. I'm white and I haven't lived this, and I don't have the same knowledge as you do, living it and experiencing it. But I am familiar with the pushback of, if you're going to talk specifically about this group, then why aren't you talking specifically about the rest of the groups? And I think the argument has been the one that we all have been making, is that American freedmen have been consistently put at the back, even though that they were the founders of this country, the ones who built this country, and that in order to repair and to appreciate that contribution to the building of the United States and the society that we have today, we have that this is owed. This is our obligation as a country. So I am familiar through that lens.
Yeah, so I want to ask us a question about you personally, right? And so what is your background in America, like your family's history in America? Are you tied into, let's say, like, do you have in either way, like, it's commendable your position either way, but I would like, you to speak, candidly about what your family's background, if do you come from a family of tied into like abolitionists, or does your family come from like Confederate slaveholders? Do you, or do you know?
Not I don't think, I mean, I growing up, my heroes have always been abolitionists, and my my family's background is descendants of working people, not plantation owners. Um, we come from, so my mother is an immigrant, and she came from the UK, but my dad, his family is from the Northeast, from New England, and it's pretty much been a history of just working Americans. They have, there is traces back to being here from the time of the American Revolution.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you answering the question. That's all I got.
Indeed, indeed. So look, family, we're gonna start winding it down. Thank you for coming on and sitting on this hot seat, because and we have to ask these questions. We have to pretty much vet people when they come into this space, and we want to make sure that they get the exposure, right? Whether, we're not trying to shape how anybody feels about you or your stances, et cetera, et cetera. Most of us already have uh, the same feelings regardless, but it is still our job to ask questions and try to ask them in a fair way so that you can answer them, and be able to represent yourself and your platform and the things that you stand on, the why that you want to run, your background, et cetera, et cetera. So, we've read the website. The people in the chat, they're going over some of, what they feel is problematic in the website, right? And as I said earlier, you have candidates that are non-Freedmen candidates. They're going to have a lot of stuff on their website that caters to everybody else, especially of their demographic. My website is going to be Freedmen heavy. It is what it is. I know the politics that we need, and that is the way I am going to draft up my particular political platform. And that's the way any reparationist should. That's why we ask the reparationists to come build with us. And the genuine ones, they'll do that. So thank you again for coming on, Alexandra. Did you have any last words you want to have for your supporters, your detractors, et cetera, et cetera?
No, I just thank you for having me here, and it's okay to be tough on me. I think that that's just the nature of running for this seat, and running this race and the platform that I'm running on. And I think that it's very important to have conversations even when it's difficult, and that's how we grow and learn and move forward together. So I'm always happy to have the difficult, well, maybe not happy, I will have the difficult conversations, and I'm very grateful that you had me on here and educated me as well.
And I want to say one thing: continue, if nothing else, continue to use the term American freedmen. Continue this American freedmen language. And like I said earlier when we first started, if you dig down in that reconstruction history, you'll really see the origin of the disadvantage. So continue to use that, because that was basically our status as a special status that was supposed to be put upon us as a protected class of people in this government. Because, and also too, a book called The Unconstitutionality of Slavery by Alexandra Spooner. Because basically we've been day one citizens, and it's not like the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment basically made us citizens. We were citizens the whole time. So that's the root, and that's kind of like what I was trying to basically convey to you, that it's not a matter of principle. Reparations is not just a matter of principle. It's a matter of a legal precedence that was set up, by Congress. And and you basically have to kind of like get into that understanding that, and I think that this would help you when you talk about those things, is that this is illegal. What was done was a legal violation and not just a moral one.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. So look, family, you already know what it is. We might be coming back on this Thursday. Topic to be determined. We have several things that we actually want to build upon. We're just not sure yet. So y'all make sure that y'all stay tuned for any promos that we are putting out. Again, we want to thank the guest, Alexandra Hunt, running for the 3rd district in Pennsylvania. And my closing remarks would be just, if you're going to have freedmen and reparationists in your platform, get involved with the education. We have hours and hours and hours worth of videos on this channel and on our BTP Media Group channel as well. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
You as well.
Thank you for coming on.
I'll leave y'all with the motto of the platform. Y'all already know what it is. Don't just fight the power, become the power, and then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I'll say peace.